Our Better Humans at Work live stream. It's such a treat today that you don't just get two of us, you get three of us, and we're all here from Mattingly Solutions. Today's episode is all about Kelsie Colley and all the amazing work that she's done here and how she's going to change the world moving forward. But before we talk all about Kelsie, Certrice Grice, my biz bestie, co-founder, partner in crime, anything to chime in and share with our audience, any updates in your world before we jump into the episode?
No, just excited to be here. Looking forward to doing more of these where both you and I are here, V, and we can chat it up with people. So excited to get to hear from Kelsie and share her brilliance with the world today.
Kelsie, we're so happy to have you here. We've been so happy that your time throughout here at Mattingly Solutions. And so please introduce yourself to the audience, share a little bit about your story and like where you came from and how you ended up at Mattingly. And then we'll get into all the awesome things that you did here.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for the warm welcome to this Better Humans at Work episode. My name is Kelsie Colley. I am wrapping up my PhD in Industrial Organizational Psychology, yay, IO Psych, at Colorado State University. I've been working at Mattingly for about a year and a half now, worn plenty of different hats, and it's been super fun during my time here. My career path has really been focused on vulnerable working populations since day one. So super interested in people like pregnant working employees, safety and health in the workplace, occupational health psychology. And what I realized is what I cared most about was the outcomes and the impact we could make through science. And that really led me to my diversity, equity, and inclusion career pathing and my role at Mattingly Solutions.
Yeah, it's fun because Kelsie joined Mattingly just a couple months before I did. And I remember when I came on board and I started doing things and I would ask you questions. And it took me a little bit to even realize, I thought she'd been here since the beginning because she just knew everything. She had all these answers. And then one day I asked something and I don't remember what it was, but you weren't sure. And you were like, yeah, I've only been here a couple months. I was like, what? This is amazing. So been crushing it since day one, basically, is what I'm saying.
Thank you, Certrice. Coming from you, that means so much.
Well, so Kelsie ended up at Mattingly. So I started the company by myself in August of 2019. And I don't know if any of y'all out there are solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, but like I'm too much of an extrovert to do this on my own. And we know through all the research and the work we do that the beauty of diversity and just like the magic that happens when you get different perspectives and people in a room together. Like I can never do that by myself. One cannot do that by themselves. So Kelsie reached out. I think it was just two of us at Mattingly when you reached out, Kelsie. We might have had like one intern or something, like an undergrad intern, who are all been amazing. But Kelsie's like, hey, like, do you have any opportunity for like an internship this summer? And it was like January or February, and like we were so like needing someone who knew like IO and knew the space and could just jump right in. And I was like, you're hired full-time in the summer and can you start soon? And so she like all while doing school and teaching and research and getting the dissertation ready, she jumped in early and did amazing work, like, and then came full throttle after that. And so Kelsie, tell us about your time here, like how your like journey has been, because even just in the short like year plus you've been here, you have done so many things. So walk us through your time here at Mattingly and like what lit you up and what was hard, and we just want to hear all about your journey.
Yeah, for sure. When I first came on, I think we were in the season of marketing and translating IO research into like our audience and who our audience was. So jumping into that role, I was able to be a lot more creative than you typically are in graduate school, right? So instead of just writing papers for publication or just the traditional APA format for, academia, I was able to jump into things like graphic design, even some sort of like infographic stuff that was super, super neat. And so that was the early days of marketing and translating IO. And sort of building some of those early on reports for some of our clients that are the foundation of some of the stuff we use now too. After marketing, it really transitioned more into research and development internally. That is like where I loved it. I could talk for days about this. So if there was a 2-day long Better Humans at Work episode just on that, I could probably fill all of our time. But what was really neat about my time at Mattingly was and all the roles I was in, whether it was marketing or that consultant role or the R&D role, was the translating of research to practice, which is something that I think it becomes an ideal or a goal for most of us, right, in this space, but we don't always get to execute at the level we do at Mattingly, and I got to do here, which was so neat. It's the scientist practitioner model, the best we can do it. And to me, that's a dream, and it's been a dream. So a couple of the projects I've worked on that are my two favorites would be the Mattingly Inclusion and Belonging Assessment. And that is one of our core, survey offerings here. But the neat thing about that was the validation process. So just, double checking what we think is accurate, getting the evidence to back that up, to make sure, what we're measuring is actually something we can hold people accountable. Does it mean meaningful things? Does it give value to our clients to make their workforce more diverse, equitable, and inclusive? So that was a really neat translation project from research to practice. And then since then, we've been building, a DEI audit. So what are the things out there we can do to really make action changes at the policy level within orgs? So exploring, the lit review out there, our commercial offerings around people, processes, and power, and then the changes we can make based on those things too. And then the evidence and metrics to track that over time to make sure, we're making the impact we're interested in making. So those are the things I've loved to do. One of my favorite things is our team meetings on Tuesday mornings. The culture here is absolutely fantastic. And I let people say that, and it's a facade. It's not that way here. It's really as good as it looks, which is very neat. But yeah, I love all things here. And my role, especially that translation piece, has been very neat.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that, again, and I love what you dropped in chat, Victoria, is just really hyping up how talented you are as far as you have that knowledge, right? And what you're learning in your PhD program and pulling that in, but also just your design skills. Like that is not an IO skill listed anywhere for IO psychologists to be able to make things beautiful, but you're so good at making things pretty. It was like having a graphic designer and IO psychologist rolled up into one. And so I know Victoria talked about our brand on social media, but you've also done a lot internally on the design side. And so, yeah, that's definitely one of the places where you've had a wild amount of input and impact. Mm-hmm. But then I've also enjoyed seeing your journey and kind of growth in the translation piece, because you're in school, so starting out very academic at first, and then learning how to translate that a little differently and how to present that information to clients. I think that's one of the things one of the strengths I've seen you work on the most over the past year and a half that you've done really well improving on.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a big learning curve.
Go ahead.
No one teaches you how to do an executive summary in grad school, and we're so focused on the fancy stats, especially in our field, that we lost the application piece and the impact piece, and how can we take all these data points? And Kelsie is literally doing that today. She is taking a 100-page deck of multiple data, survey focus groups, qualitative, quantitative, and boiling it down for this client that we worked with over 5 months into a 1-page executive summary. I did give you the legal size paper, Kelsie, so it's a little bigger than the 11, but so I was curious if you would notice that one. So I gave you a little bit more space, but that's what we need to do. And when we keep saying translation, and I love I was so drawn to IO as a field because of the scientist practitioner model, that we can take things like research and data and theory and turn it into something that orgs can actually use and leaders and employees can use. But I feel like we fail like that a lot of the way in our field. We have the academics doing their thing over here, and then the practitioners are scrambling because this isn't coming fast enough, and also they're not communicating back. This is a divide. And so to be able to really take that and jump into this, Kelsie, and be that translator and give that value to our clients, and boil down all your brilliance and all the data and all the insights into what are the 3 points that this CEO only has time to remember and potentially do, and so you've just done a really great job at that.
Thank you. It's been a joy, honestly, and a challenge, but one that I'm looking forward to applying in my future roles and will take with me and pass on to other recent graduates too as I work with them.
So you mentioned a little bit before about the culture here, and
Yes.
that's something unique to, and I'm always, talking with Mr. Treese about it as co-owners. How do we build a culture whenever we're virtual first? And, we're all coming at you in our homes right now and all across the country. I'm up in Pittsburgh, so Treese is in North Carolina, Kelsey's in Colorado. And so how has your experience been with a digital, company culture? What did you enjoy about it? Like, what was challenging about the digital environment? Just so curious to hear how that was for you.
Yeah, I love working remotely. I wish we could see each other face to face more for lunches and workshopping meetings and stuff like that. But working remote is great, especially for someone like me who is neurodivergent, where sometimes being on the stage all day at work can feel a little bit distracting than from the actual work. And so I've thrived, I think, working remotely, especially with y'all, where we have open and transparent communication on things like Slack, emails, or just a phone call away. I've really liked that. And the flexible working hours too. So if I want to walk my dog in the morning or work out or do some yoga in the afternoon, you can take a break and do that and refocus when you come back. So I've really, really enjoyed that. One of the areas that, has always been a challenge is wondering, how long do I go down this rabbit hole or, something I'm struggling with before I ask for help? And so one thing I've liked about working at Mattingly is I've always been able to ask what I feel like are silly or stupid questions to anyone at all levels. And so there's no barrier or fear when I'm messaging you on Slack, via asking where something is or asking for clarification. It's been really helpful.
Yeah.
And then Treese has your funny the fun only channel questions, which are super fun on Thursdays, which were like, if you were to be in a musical, what would your musical be about? Or
it's gotta liven it up.
What trash television are you watching this week? And then
yes,
go down those rabbit holes.
Hey, what happens in the fun only channel stays in the fun only.
Exactly. I'm so sorry. I'll edit this out later. But even Slack though, because Slack is our workplace essentially, and Slack would love this right now. This could be like an ad for them, but it legit is, because we have that DM access. You can have a private conversation, and what you mentioned before, Kelsie, you don't get the whole oh hey, where do I find this thing? There's no one at that. There's no chair because there's no one at that desk, and Slack can help replicate that a little bit, but it still takes getting that culture in place where someone feels comfortable and they feel well, I think this is a dumb question, but no one else does. We never do. And we need to ask even more questions because we don't have that osmosis of being in the same space together. And even the emojis, when people drop memes or the things, we are building a little culture on there, and I feel it. And as an extrovert, I'm not too drained being alone all day physically in my house. And I think it's our culture. Kelsie, so you mentioned neurodiversity, and you've been such an amazing advocate, and you've taught me so much about the space and about the field, and also about what employees need when it comes to from a support or accommodation, or just how we should treat each other with the dignity and respect we all deserve, and so and you really made a lot of waves in the Society for Industrial Organizational Psychology conference that was just a few weeks ago. So can you tell us how you kind of got into this space and what you've been doing and what your vision is for you as a neurodiversity thought leader moving forward?
Sure. So this is something that definitely relates to building that culture at Mattingly too, where we were at SIOP's recent conference. I was able to share positive things about working at Mattingly, such as the psychological safety to feel like I could come out as neurodivergent. So I am autistic, and being able to share that with my employers and coworkers can be scary for a lot of people, and a lot of people choose not to disclose. And I was able to share some of the key factors of why I felt comfortable disclosing at Mattingly as sort of a example of what leaders can do well to support that safety. And then if there's that disclosure, at least for me, I'm able to ask, more specific questions that my other colleagues maybe aren't asking. And then my leaders are able to follow up with more specific feedback that helps accommodate me and my needs so I can thrive. So yeah, I became really passionate about the neurodiversity movement a couple years ago. And, I started Googling it. I read about Judy Singer. She came up with the term from Australia in 1998, just to really kind of coin an umbrella term for the entire globe, that neurodiversity is a global characteristic, that we're all diverse in the way we think and feel and perceive the world. And then since then, we have the neurodiversity movement, which is to bring awareness and acceptance to those who are not neurotypical, who are neurodivergent like myself. And so about halfway through that journey into that new, area of application and research, I was diagnosed with autism and realized I was doing the me search that we all hear about so much. So it's been really interesting and awesome to be a part of this space. And some of my recent work that we did present at that conference at SciApp is in collaboration with Dr. Colin Willis at HigherView and then Tracy Powell-Rudy at Integrate, to really drive not only the research, but the impact we can have to equal the playing field for those who are neurodivergent, especially in the hiring space. So really passionate about that area. Some of our work has looked at interviews, game-based assessments for cognitive ability as a way to level the playing field. We have a recent publication about that in the Journal of Intelligence, so we can drop that link in the chat here too, but it's open source, so anyone can grab it. Super neat. I love this area. And so a couple things I've done at Mattingly too, not only just openly communicating about it in Slack, but, creating some of that marketing material for the Neurodiversity Month, and then helping with some of our upcoming resources for inclusive language as well. So, yeah.
So Kelsie, one question for the audience, because I know that not everyone is familiar with the term. Could you give us a quick little definition and maybe a few examples of what would fall under that umbrella term?
Sure. So neurodiversity, like I said, was coined by Judy Singer, but that is a group level term, right? So groups are neurodiverse. You and I and V here, we're all neurodiverse. Our group is. Neurodivergent, with the divergent at the end of that term, is for an individual or a neurodivergent group, where all of those people are either diagnosed or self-identify as being neurodivergent. And it typically started out with things like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and now we've kind of gotten more underneath that umbrella term in terms of mental health as well. And so the term can be used to talk about it in a lot of different ways. And one thing to keep in mind is just to make sure it's never used with a negative connotation, right? So we don't want to assimilate neurodiversity with disorders necessarily, right? Because people may see their neurodivergency as a positive thing and not a disability. And so there's a lot of individuality within the neurodiversity movement around those terms. But the two things you do need to know are neurodiversity as a group and neurodivergent as an individual. So. Yeah.
So I've asked Kelsie that differentiation so many times, and for some reason, I never clicked until right now, and I can't wait to follow up with the leadership team. I just did one of these. We just did a workshop this morning on the difference between disability and neurodiversity and how this all fits into this broader DEI picture, right? Mm-hmm. And I got it wrong throughout the entire workshop, and so now it's just so aha to me. And I'm so excited to share it back with them. And something I lost my train of thought. I do that all the time. So Tracy, you jump in. Let me ask. It's gonna come back.
It's the neurodivergence, right? It's fine. No, this is really great, Kelsie. So just kind of thinking, are you excited to keep up with that research after you graduate? Because I know sometimes when people finish their PhD, they kind of stop. Or are you going to try and look for ways to do more research?
Yeah, I definitely hope to continue with these applied research areas in any career I'm in, any job I land. So I think staying that connection right between translation, between research and practice is, I think I need to be there to thrive and to be able to sleep at night. So definitely going to stay on board with this specific research group. Absolutely, as long as they'll have me. In the future, I have ideas around other skill development projects around topics related to masking, so reducing stimming in the workplace. And other areas that I'd love to explore in the future. So I hope to be a thought leader one day, to take that title and continue this work. Definitely excited for more.
I'm shaking my head because you are already a thought leader. There's the session that I mentioned at the conference, standing room only, just the research you're putting out there. And as I said before, we like to pride ourselves as scientist practitioners in this field, but rarely do any of us really pull it off, especially at the level you are with peer-reviewed, high quality research and integrating across, research and practice too, like the the different diversity that's on even your authorship team right there. And so
Absolutely.
I did realize what I was going to say before. I put it in the chat, superpowers, and it's related to something you said before, Kelsie, about how you don't know if someone views, an aspect of neurodiversity as a disability, right? And so, but some might, and some might not. And the big key lesson in that workshop I did today was like, you just need to find out the words that you want, that individual wants you to use, right? At the end of the day, that really is like the right answer. And for those who do view their neurodivergence as a strength, they were talking about like superpowers, right? This could be like, why would we not want a whole range of neurodiversity? Because there are some people, and not to make stereotypes, not that everyone with neurodiversity is amazing at numbers and coding, but we are starting to see some trends where there's some superpowers, skills, and strengths that we're missing out on because we're not building an inclusive workplace for a neurodiverse population, right? And so I just love that they were talking about it in terms of superpowers. Like, that's what we need to talk about diversity as. It's not tolerance. It's not like, well, we need to learn how to understand each other across our differences. Yes, that's true. But like, how do we view differences as like a superpower or like the sum is greater than its parts, right? And I think you would have been really happy if you could have been a fly on the wall today, Kelsie, and how these leaders seem to be really getting it. And I think a big part of that is because I was sharing anonymously a lot of stories of us working together here at Mattingly. Super grateful for you for helping me be a more inclusive leader and understand, what I can do to support you and future employees like you. Speaking of which, huge life updates for you. So you're about to get your PhD. So get ready for a doctor in front of that name very, very soon. And you're about to get a big full-time fancy job to take all the things that you've learned in Mattingly and scale at a big organization. So tell us about, what's next for you, ending this chapter of your life and starting the next.
Yeah, I am very excited. I am ready to have the official doctor title. I've loved my time at Colorado State, but I'm so ready to just take it with me and apply it somewhere. I am really looking for a role in the future that I'm able to continuously do this sort of application and translation of research to practice. And it doesn't have to be at this high level of, peer-reviewed right to how we do it at the org, but continuously doing internal research or little mini studies or testing some hypotheses here and there. My goal is to work for a company that I believe in, either, the products and services that they sell or how they do their work, similar to how I feel about Mattingly, right? So if I could find a space in an org like that, I would just be so happy and thrilled to keep applying this sort of data-driven DEI work for someone else. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, again, like any company is going to be lucky to have you. That was one of my favorite parts too, is outside of just, your day-to-day job and what you had to do, all of the random little tidbits you drop in Slack of, oh, I have a research idea. Oh, I have a service idea. Oh, I have this idea. Have you ever thought about this? Did you read this? And there's so much swirling around in that head of yours.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I love it. And it's such a benefit. So don't ever think that is not a good trait. It's a wonderful trait.
My busy brain. Yes.
Brain blast. I learned brain blast from you, Kelsie. I love that term. Brain blast. It's amazing.
Yeah, when your mind just takes off without you.
Well, and when Mattingly is this humongous multi-million billion-dollar company someday, I said it. Marketing founder, chief scientist, right? Like that's like, you are just so like, and a chief scientist in a organization, right? Like you just have that mindset. I'm just so excited for you to take all those amazing ideas and do this work, whether it's, building the products or, delivering the services or just doing the research that has that impact, because your very short time here, just over a year, you've had so much impact and will continue to have impact because of what you've built, what you've done, and, deciding to sign up for #startup life and all that comes with it. So we're so grateful for you, Kelsie. We're so excited to see where you go from here. And even though you won't be coming into the Mattingly Solutions Slack office every day, you'll always be a part of who we are as a culture, and we'll continue working together in some capacity, because that's just how we roll. So any final thoughts, or Teresa or Kelsie, before we sign off?
Yeah, I'm just glad you joined us today, Kelsie, and that we were able to share this with everyone. This is fun. We'll do it again in the future. Again, even though you're stepping out of the permanent like Mattingly solutions, you're still Mattingly.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you both so much. I've learned so much from working with you and for you, and I just will be forever grateful.
Thank you. Have a great day.